All right, so a couple injury updates happened yesterday from Rob Thompson. No, I think it's all good news.
I know.
I personally, in my medical degree profession, I disagree with bringing Bryce Harper back, but that's okay. So Bryce Harper's hamstring, Rob Thompson compared to the Brandon Marsh hamstring injury that kept him out like 2.5 weeks, whatever it was, not the Trey Turner one that was 4 to 6 weeks. Harper has been cleared to hit the pool and the weight room, and they think there's a possibility he could be back by the Dodgers Athletic homestand right before the All-Star break. Now, to me, 6 games is not worth – and look, I'm not looking at his hamstring. I'm not a doctor. I think you guys know that. Did you know that? Did you guys know?
I thought you have a medical degree.
Oh, okay. Good. I fooled you.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'm so fooled.
What have we been doing this whole time?
Yeah, what?
You just
I thought you were a residential doctor.
Now you're just not a resident anymore?
Yeah,
like, what are we doing?
I hate to break it to you guys, but I personally – I don't think the 6 games is worth it. Now, he probably wants to play in the All-Star game, and he probably wants to be on the field as soon as possible, and it's why we love Bryce Harper. To me, for a guy, you know, right around age 30, 31, to have his first soft tissue injury and possibly get a whole additional week of rest on it, I don't see the 6 games being worth it. Obviously, my opinion means nothing in this. I would just give him the extra rest and say, Bryce, if you want to play in the All-Star game, play 2 innings, that's fine. But, like, why don't we just chill on your Phillies appearances until after the break? That's my feelings on it, but good news, he could be back before the All-Star break. Does Dr. Washington have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't like this at all. I used to... I basically have medical experience because I wanted to be a doctor. So basically, I'm a doctor.
So you're with me.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
The great minds agree.
As someone that actually has messed up her hamstrings several times and did rush back, I did rush back. And I remember playing soccer, limping around, couldn't even fully run because without a full hamstring, you can't stride and run. And I was like a pogo stick out there. And now mine, I came back because it was like, we were in the middle of our conference tournament and I was not missing the conference tournament and we actually won it. So I had to be there. So I get it. I understand where Bryce is coming from, but this is not the tournament. This is not the postseason. We're not talking about playoff baseball right now. We're talking about you getting back for the All-Star game. But as you mentioned, probably getting back for the Dodgers series in general, just to give you time to get a couple games under your belt. Hamstrings are a really tricky injury, and I don't love how he exited the game. That concerns me. That doesn't scream only out for a week. He seems pretty hobbled.
And it's
leaving.
The first one he's ever been through.
And it's the first one he's ever been through. So he doesn't know how to handle it, how his body's going to respond to it. And so I think in his mind, the hard part with hamstrings is you feel fine. You're moving around. Every once in a while you feel a twinge that reminds you like, oh, shoot, I'm hurt. But you kind of feel fine until you don't. So I think to rush Bryce Harper back, because he mentally feels ready. Physically, I don't think he's going to be ready a week from now. Would I love to see him back out there? Absolutely. This past weekend without Kyle, without Bryce, was really hard to watch. But I'd rather have him healthy as the season progresses, miss another week. Maybe you don't get a chance to play in the All-Star game. Or as you mentioned, Jamie, you figure out a way to play an inning or two. Your health is more important than rushing back for July baseball. That's what it comes down to. Bryce Harper is a big piece of this team. You need him at 100%. More come September, October than you need him right now at 60%. There's no reason to rush. Had we been in a later part of the season, totally different discussion. But I think right now, given the schedule, they actually have some days off. Today, they're off. They're off next Monday. So there's some days that you don't even have a game as a team. Like, you can minimize how much you're missing right now. Then there's the All-Star break where obviously the Phillies aren't playing any games. So Spinorama, you might not be able to play in the All-Star game, but during that break, there are no Phillies games for you to miss. So if you can take this time where you actually have over the next couple weeks, days off, no games, get yourself healthy, I'd rather do that. I'd rather have ugly baseball without Bryce for a couple weeks if it means he's back 100%.
Yeah, just 6 games is just not worth it to me to rush it when you can get a whole additional week off. So that's the update on him. Now, Kyle Schwarber, Rob Thompson called his injury very, very mild. It looks like everybody fully expects Kyle Schwarber to return on July 9th when his 10-day IL stint is retroactive until. So it looks like he'll be back 8 days from now. So that's pretty much at the same thing, right? Like right after the Braves series.
His also seemed. We didn't even see him.
I didn't even
hurt.
see when he did it.
So for him to be able to exit the game on his own accord,
he was
fine.
talking after the game like he was pretty much fine.
And a groin is a lot easier to recover from than a hamstring.
Yes. So good news there on Kyle Schwarber. Only 8 more days without him. Don't worry, because the leadoff hitter is needed.
It's a minor break built in.
Yeah. Now JT Realmuto was supposed to take batting practice and throw on the field prior to the game yesterday. It appears he should be good shortly after the All-Star break. They didn't say first series, but it does seem like shortly after the All-Star break, JT Realmuto is going to be back rejoining this team. So that's great news.
That is fantastic news. And that's right on schedule because he was originally slotted to be back right after the All-Star break. I just feel like July is a great time as we keep talking through. Like the more I think about it, also with it being hotter in general, like, I don't know, just take your time. There's no rush. JT and Kyle should be back. So let them come back before to Kyle, definitely before Bryce returns. But I know in the chat, Linda's upset because she was ready for that Bryce versus Shohei showdown. We will get that later in the season. It's going to happen, but I'd rather it happen with Bryce at 100% than rushing back.
Yeah. And good news on Andrew Painter.
Yeah.
I did not expect to see any updates on Andrew Painter in a throwing session, but the the current number one overall prospect in the Phillies system is throwing 25-pitch bullpens. This was according to Phillies Nation. Every Tuesday and Friday. He's only throwing fastballs and changeups, so he's currently not doing the breaking stuff, which can be tough on an elbow, and Tommy John. But Rob Thompson also didn't rule out him pitching in some simulated games, which are obviously a controlled setting, before the end of the year. Now, the last time we kind of heard a real update on him was Dave Dombrowski in, what was that, late January, early February? And he said, I don't anticipate him throwing much this year at all. Like, the way he kind of painted the picture was if he starts throwing in November, December, like, that would be a positive.
Right.
He's throwing bullpen sessions, granted, just fastball and changeup already. So I think this is a really good sign that potentially he could, I don't know, maybe contribute as early as opening day next year. Like, it's still going to be rough, and you're probably going to want to get him in AAA. But it's certainly a quicker timeline than I was anticipating.
Yeah,
so that's a positive.
Honestly, the biggest thing that we keep hearing from everything coming around Andrew Painter and himself included is how they aren't rushing. They're not trying to get back. And there absolutely is no need to. And so because of that, the way they keep talking, it just seems like, as you mentioned, we would see him more in the summer of 2025. I know everything keeps saying, when they say 2025, it's like, what does that mean? Are we talking spring training? Are we talking opening day? Are we talking July?
We're talking the day after Super 2 wraps up and they can have him under team contract, team control for another season. That's exactly the day that Andrew Painter makes his debut.
Yeah, that makes most sense.
It's encouraging to hear. And it did feel like, honestly, before there was the talk. So the reason why I felt like they started slowing things down was because people were talking on the reverse, that Andrew could be late 2024, that we could see him, and that he's great. He's doing great, and his rehab's going so well. When will we see him? When will we see him? So encouraged to hear that there's a time that's finally been kind of like said that, or an idea of a timeline, because now to know he's going twice a week, throwing 25, not doing the full gamut, but at least getting some pitches out of his system. That means we're moving forward. Finally heard something from Andrew Painter. He's like the ghost. I don't know. I feel like he's the guy that we never hear anything about him. We don't really know what's going on. Like, where is he? What is he doing?
It's good to hear an update. The other update is Taijuan Walker is throwing weighted baseballs. He's throwing fastballs only, trying to get his arm strength back up and letting the blister heal. He's going to start throwing splitters again, maybe in the next week or 2 weeks, and could join. He's not going to join before the All-Star break. He's another guy post All-Star break. Look, they're going to need Taijuan. I mean, unless Michael Mercado goes out here tomorrow night and shuts down Wrigley Field and has a great performance and then keeps it going for another 2 starts after that, Taijuan Walker is coming back to this team.
Yeah,
so we have the only realistic option here is to hope that Taijuan Walker can eat some innings up for you, can keep you in some ball games before the end of the year, and then you don't have him on the playoff roster, and life is good.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that blister's causing some problems. It might have opened up again or something. I don't know what's happening here. Blisters are actually really annoying in all seriousness. It's like a stub toe. It's just like so painful, and it's just lingering, or a paper cut, like you randomly, especially on your fingers. So gosh, take your time, Taijuan. But I'm glad we were able to bring this injury update brought to you by Dr. Lynch and Dr. Washington.
Yeah, it's all
because
good
there's
stuff.
some great positives coming out.
No negatives.
And the time frame continues to be around the All-Star break, that coming out of the All-Star games, you're going to get these guys back. Seems like they're taking their time. Bryce is the only one that's extremely concerning with him trying to rush back next week. But if Kyle's going to be back next week,
I wouldn't even say
JT's
extremely, because he returned from his elbow surgery so freakishly fast
yeah,
that I'm not like overly concerned about it. I just would prefer it because like what's 6 games ultimately? You still have an 8-game lead.